Hello again, Rec Techies. Welcome to the only podcast that helps employers and recruiters connect with more candidates through technology-inspired conversations. Attracting talent through recruiting technology is changing rapidly, and that's what this show is all about. Today's episode is a vendor edition. So just to give a little preamble for today's discussion, I've been podcasting since probably around 2005, I believe, when I launched a job hunting show called Secrets of the Job Hunt, which got millions of downloads eventually. Back in 2007, if any of you remember, I got companies start podcasting about their jobs through a product called Jobs in Pods. And it had some early success with clients like Intel, Walgreens, AT&T, to name a few. But then the Great Recession hit. Interest in the product started dwindling and eventually kind of died on its own. But those are the early days in the podcast world. And but the medium's come a long way since then. Podcasts are now mainstream. And so when I saw the news about Spokn, a startup that helps companies create audio for their workers, I wanted to hear about what they're up to. So Spokn's customers create podcasts for employee engagement, onboarding, diversity initiatives, and learning and development. Joining me now is one of their co-founders, Mariel Davis. Hey, Mariel, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So this might be the right time for audio creation for employers. I'm curious from your standpoint, why podcasting do you think is the right medium for talking to your employees right now?
Right. Well, so let's even start with thinking about the way that the world has really changed over the past year and a half, right? Now more than ever, companies have this urgent need to communicate more and more effectively with their employees. You know, if you've got remote or hybrid teams, you know, they're no longer walking through the hallways and picking up through osmosis the knowledge and the culture that's in a company. And so a lot of the companies that we work with are trying to find new ways to build that cultural connective tissue. And frankly, the existing tools fall short. You know, if you look at email, it's really impersonal. It's, you know, very easy to get your tone misread and it's long, pretty boring. You look at Slack or Teams, it gets very, very noisy for employees. And even video, you know, you've got Zoom fatigue, you've got time zone challenges, you've got caregivers who have schedules that are hard to predict. And so we sort of look at this spectrum of communication opportunities that companies have. And then you look at podcasts and you go, wow, podcasting is a distinctly good format for communicating and engaging with employees in a remote or hybrid world of work. You know, first, it's incredibly rich. The voice is so personal and it conveys so much meaning, and yet it is also incredibly easy. It is very easy on the listener. You know, it's so convenient for them. It's the one part of their workday, frankly, that doesn't involve them sitting in front of a screen, but it's also relatively easy to create. And so
more so than video too, right?
Much more so than video. And we've also found, interestingly, that there are a lot of people who are just more comfortable using their voice than they would be on video. And that means that you're bringing in more diverse voices within a company. And so, you know, you take all of these benefits of the format itself, and then you also just look at the context. You know, podcasts are incredibly popular among millennial and Gen Zs. And it really only feels natural that we would be communicating with employees in a way that meets their preferences, even outside of work.
Yeah. So you guys are a fairly new company. I think you came out of Y Combinator in November of last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we actually came out of Y Combinator in March of this year.
March of this year. Okay. So what was the sort of the evolution of the product, and what was sort of the aha moment for you guys when you realized that, okay, we gotta go to podcasting here with, you know, internally with companies?
Sure. So Spokn, I'll share with you a little bit of the backstory. So in February of 2020, my co-founder and I were still living in Egypt, where we had started the company. And at that time, you know, we had started with an idea in the B2C realm and had decided to pivot into the B2B world. And the idea was to enable companies to use audio, bite-sized audio, to engage their learners year-round. So we had wanted to create a B2B audio learning and development solution. So we built partnerships with Harvard Business School and with MIT and with McKinsey and many more. And we had narrated their phenomenal content on behavioral skills. And we put it onto this mobile app, this platform. And, you know, in March of 2020, we knew that we wanted to meet our customers face to face. And so my co-founder and I moved from Egypt in what is possibly the most hilariously poorly timed move ever. We came about a week prior to COVID to New York, thinking we would network, thinking we would go to lots of meetings and things. Then immediately the city shut down. But what ended up happening, which is really interesting, is that we started bringing customers onto this learning and development platform in about June of 2020. And what was fascinating was that we were seeing activity. People are consuming this great content from Harvard or MIT, et cetera. But we'd get these crazy spikes in usage. And we were wondering, what is going on? And we noticed that people were using this one little feature of the platform, the idea that they could upload their own content rather than using our third-party content. And they were using it in a way we hadn't expected. We had anticipated them uploading their own training content. Instead, what we saw is that they were uploading, a weekly podcast from their CEO, or a podcast where two employees were interviewing each other, because there was so much communication and so much sort of understanding within a company. All the stories that used to be transmitted in a physical office environment, all of those were getting lost. And so we looked at what our customers were doing on Spokn, and we said, wow, that is a much better idea than what it was that we were originally working on. And so that's, in the fall, in the late fall, actually, of 2020 is when we really started to rebuild the platform to make it, more specifically this podcasting platform for work, where you can absolutely do phenomenal learning and development on the platform. We got a lot of our customers are doing learning and development podcasts. But you can also do podcasts for employee engagement. You can also do podcasts for executive communications and strategic alignment. So there just is a lot more opportunity in the audio for enterprise space than we had even seen at first.
Yeah, I love that story. It's you don't know exactly how your product's going to be received by the audience until you get it out there.
We are very lucky to have had the incredible first customers that we did. Customers like Cedar Health, based in New York, who they sort of took it and ran with it. Cedar, of course, the name Cedar, they started an employee-based podcast that's Between Two Pines.
Yep.
It's an employee talk show. And it's just phenomenal to watch the ways that companies are getting really creative with this.
That's terrific. I love the story. So walk me through how the platform works. I'm curious how people create the content, how people subscribe to it, how they, distribute it internally, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, imagine, let's sort of walk through one specific use case. So say you are a company leader and you wanted to do a weekly update of some sort, or share like a big company win. So you could record that audio either using the mobile app itself, or you could even record it on Zoom. And you upload the audio file onto the Spokn platform. And then you can send it to your employees in a push notification. So it reaches them on their mobile phone. They're able to listen while they go on a walk, or while they, do the dishes, while they do a load of laundry. And so they can experience your message just like they do with their favorite podcasts, except that it is private and it's secure. And you, as the company, as the admin, are able to see the engagement data. So you can understand what messages stick and what resonates with your employees. And the final thing I'll add to this is that the content also lives on somewhere. So you're creating a repository of content, some of which is time sensitive, but a lot of which is actually evergreen. And so for companies that are capturing stories on their culture, even stories on maybe changes in the industry or history of the company, these are incredibly, incredibly helpful audios for new hires as they join, or people who are changing departments. So having this repository of audio content within a company too has become incredibly valuable for our customers.
Yeah. So you said it goes to their phone. So does the company then upload a list of phone numbers to their account or whatever?
This is a mobile app that employees are able to download from the App Store, both Android and iPhone. And then, within a couple of weeks, actually, we'll have a web player as well.
Okay, I see. Very cool. And give me some more examples of the kind of content your customers are pushing out there right now.
Sure. So a great example is ServiceNow right now. They're in the process of building their first ever learning and development podcast. And so they are going to be interviewing, 30 leaders from across the organization, everyone from SVPs down to normal managers, to ask about how they're dealing with work-life blend, how they see career growth at ServiceNow. That's a great example of something that's a kind of story-based learning and development podcast. Some of our other customers, ShipBob, for example, they're using these podcasts to introduce new hires to the company. And so, typically in an all hands meeting, you might have 1 minute to introduce someone, but with a podcast, you're able to take 5 minutes and share some unique stories, share something special that's really distinctive and different about the person. So, other customers of ours, Squire is a great company. They just launched a podcast series with their founders about the founding story, the sort of untold story of the company, because they're entering a big period of growth, hiring a lot of people, and want to get folks up to speed. Other companies we're seeing, sales enablement is a huge one. So celebrating sales wins and just sharing tips for how to engage customers in the customer journey. So, as you can imagine, there's a lot, and I can go on and on. I'm happy to continue if you want.
Yeah, very cool. Any thoughts about, maybe using it for hiring as well, in terms of maybe letting companies interview their hiring managers, add it to their job listings, things like that?
So, Chris, one of the most interesting things that we've seen is now in basically every single sales call that we have, we get asked, okay, we love that Spokn has this privacy because it's so secure. But what if we wanted to take some of our podcasts and make them public and use them as part of our recruitment process? And so actually at the end of this month, we're launching something that enables companies to basically allow list emails and create accounts for people who are not yet employees. And we're seeing companies use this in two ways, or their intention is to use this in two ways. One is actually to include the history of the company or the company values as part of job descriptions. And so that's, really before the candidate is signed. The other way that we're seeing companies get very excited about using this is for pre-boarding. And so, in between when someone is signed, there's that crucial period where it's still so easy to lose this great talent. And so the idea that a lot of companies have is, how can we use storytelling? How can we highlight the distinctive voices in our company, or create trust in leadership even before a person's first day, by giving these new hires who have yet to join this real inside view of the company and the kind of people that work there. So it's a really, really exciting use case for us. And honestly, it's probably one of the ones that we're most excited about.
Yeah, totally. It's see, I laid the groundwork for you with jobs and pods, but
well, thank you for that.
And Intel was probably our best client we had. I think we had over 100,000 downloads. They put all the audio on their career site.
Wow.
Helped to drive a ton of just downloads. And these are basically interviews with their star employees, essentially, just asking them what it's like to work there.
Chris, I think it really speaks to two things that audio does really well. One is authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a certain type of truth that comes out in a person's voice that even can feel more authentic than coming across in video. And the second thing is trust. There's something about hearing a person's voice. Like, podcasts have sort of trained our brains to listen to the hosts or the speakers and almost see them as friends or confidants. And so, being able to have that really personal touch, but that's actually quite easy. I almost call it emotional arbitrage. You don't have to put in that much as a company, but you get this huge emotional outcome out of it. And that's an incredible opportunity for companies that really want to completely transform how it is that they're recruiting.
Yeah, totally. Authentic is the right word for that. One of the issues I ran into sometime with jobs and pods way back when was companies were trying to script it too much. We would kind of give them a list of topics we're going to go over. Some of them wanted the exact questions spelled out, and they actually wrote answers for each of their employees, which was, to me, a no-no. So I guess my question around for you is around this is, how do you educate them on creating good content? Because it is easier than video, but you do have to kind of put some planning into it, I think, and thought. But what are your tips around how to create good content for this kind of medium?
That is a great, great call out. And thank you, because there is, audio is easy, but the best audio takes some preparation. Mm. And I think, it's the sort of the same thing that you'd hope people would do even before they're talking to a meeting, for example. The first thing is to set aside a little bit of time for yourself to really think about the purpose. Like, why am I doing this podcast? What is my purpose? If I am, say, a director of a department and I'm doing a department update, why am I sharing this? Number two, who is my audience? Like, what's their perspective? How much do they understand? How much context do they have for what I'm about to say? And how can I share my news in a way that's most relevant to them, that makes them feel, oh, okay, oh my gosh, I'm really glad I'm listening to this. I'm so happy that someone shared this information with me. And then the third thing I'd say, Chris, is really being authentic. And a lot of times, frankly, authenticity is all the things that don't go right. They don't go right in the project that you're talking about. So being willing to talk about failures and like vulnerability, but also, frankly, all the things that don't go right while you're recording a podcast.
If you're a baby
and it's crying. Exactly.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly. And I think actually recognizing that imperfection is something that adds value to employees. Now more than ever, if you are looking at what millennial and Gen Z employees really care about, transparency and vulnerability are way up on the list. We don't want things that are super, super highly produced.
Right.
Instead, you want something that's a little more accessible.
Nice. So as part of this, you've raised, I think, about $4 million. That just came out. That news just came out. So what was that moment like for you guys?
It was, honestly, it was really wonderful. We couldn't be happier with the investors we have. We're so happy to work with NEA, with Reach, with so many more. And to have come out of the Y Combinator program in general was just, frankly, really a dream come true for us. We didn't expect that when we were in Egypt. But really, raising funds doesn't equal success. Success is having great customers that really love your product. And so that's where our mind is right now.
Gotcha. What's the pricing model like, Mariel?
Yeah, so it's, it depends on company size, and we typically do contracts that, cross 100% of the employee base. And so it's roughly based on the number of employees. We've really found it's actually quite interesting. Companies that roll it out company-wide, it's like a whole different level of engagement, because there's this sort of social aspect to podcasting where people like to chat about what the podcast episode was about, or sort of understand what's happening in other departments.
Yeah. So with the app, the employee will get pinged when there's a new episode. Do you allow for things like the creation of cover art, things like that, like in a typical podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah. The whole point of the app is to make it feel as close to a consumer podcast experience as possible, while still keeping it super secure. And so, cover art is there. And then, all the types of tools that, think about the tools that marketers have, for example, to engage consumers just in the normal world. We took a lot of those tools and we sort of did is turned them inside a company. And so things like personalization, if you're the admin on this and you're setting up to send a push notification out to your entire employee base of 1,000 people, you can make sure that everyone gets it with their own first name. You can also make sure that, hey, if you want it to hit their inboxes or you want it to hit their phones at 9:15 in the morning, you can make sure that it hits everyone at 9:15 in their local time zone, because you don't want to be pinging people in the middle of the night. You can even tap internal influencers within your company to have them sign off on different pieces of content that you're sending out. And then, of course, being able to dive into analytics about all of this. These are all tools that we're trying to borrow from basically modern marketing and just turn it internally into how you engage with your own employee base.
Right. Okay. Any new product enhancements coming out in the next few weeks, months?
Yes. Oh my gosh, we are so excited. we're launching our first Slack integration. We are launching our web player. And so employees that don't want to download the app, or who can't download the app for some reason, are able to play it when they're at their desk. And then the final thing that we're doing, which I think is going to be really interesting, we've also worked on an integration that helps with specifically onboarding, because this much like recruitment is one of the most popular use cases that we're finding people want to use podcasts for. And so what we've structured is the ability to do drip campaigns. And so, read off the back end of your HRIS system that when someone joins your team, on day one, they're getting that audio from the two founders sharing the founding story. On day two, they're getting that audio from the chief people officer that talks about values and the way that they're lived in the company. On day 4, they're getting that audio, which is a collection of different employees' first day stories and what their first week was like. And then on day 6, they're getting, an audio from the sales team about the customer journey, for example. And so you're able to drip this content out and have it be automated for every new employee that you have. So that's something we're really excited about.
I love that. Audio drip campaigns for onboarding. That's very unique in the space, and that's going to be a home run thing for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. We're really excited about it.
Yep. Are you hiring? And tell us where to go to learn more.
Yeah, we are hiring. Thank you for asking. Specifically, we're hiring for roles in product marketing and in sales. And so, these are jobs that are listed on our website. It's getspokn.com, and Spokn is spelled without the E. And so, we'd love for anyone who's interested to reach out. And just in general, clearly we're sort of like a sponge of a company. We're constantly taking in new ideas, and we love having conversations about how podcasts can be used to enhance the employee experience and recruitment, onboarding, anything. So we love having those conversations.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep an eye on you guys, and feel free to come back anytime, Mariel, and give us an update on the company.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me today. And also thank you so much for paving the road those years ago with podcasts for work.
Pods, baby. Shout out.
Thank you so much, Chris.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of the RegTech Podcast. Be sure to follow us on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, via the @RegTech Media handle. See every podcast, video, and blog we publish. By the way, if you want the video version of this podcast, just go to our YouTube channel, search for RegTech Media there, and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Always be recruiting.
Thank you.
All right. That's a wrap. That was great.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love the questions that you asked.
I prepared.